first start a new game, you might not realise it, but you are up against the clock. You're going to get hungry, you're going to get thirsty, and you're going to get attacked by the shark. So you need to make sure that you use that first few moments to collect everything. And I mean just constantly hook everything you see. Now some tips for that are, the barrels are super important. The barrels can contain metal, scraps, food. So make sure you get every single barrel. If you're struggling to collect everything, you can expand the raft a little bit, maybe like 4 or 5 panels out each side. So that way you've got more leverage, so you can get over to right near the ends and you can pull in things that are a little bit further away. Another technique is, if something's a little close to you, don't waste your hook because your hook can break. So just wait for something to go and float straight past you and just pick it up. That's probably the easiest way to collect stuff without using any of your resources or tools. The second tip is make your beginner tools as soon as possible. You don't want to be caught in a position where the shark attacks your boat and you don't have a spear. As you can see here, I'm flailing around while being attacked and lose a piece of the boat, which could easily have been avoided if I'd have just made a spear. I had all the resources to do it, but there you go. First thing you want to do is make rope. So for every 2 leaves you've got, you can make 1 piece of rope, and that's quite important because rope isn't found naturally floating in the debris. Now with that done, in my opinion, there are 3 things you need to build immediately. Number 1 is the building hammer. As I said, you can expand your raft, which helps with collecting stuff, and it's also used for repairing the raft if it gets attacked by a shark. The second thing is the spear. The shark will attack randomly and often, and a couple of hits with the spear will get rid of it and will save you from losing pieces of your boat. It's much easier to repair the boat than it is to replace it. The next tool is the paddle. In my opinion, this is crucial. If you want to get to an island, you're going to need a paddle. If you want to get to something that's floating, like a ship that you can see in the distance, you can paddle over to it. If there's some resources that you're just out of reach and you've broke your hammer, or you want to save your hammer, you can just swim over there with the paddle. Like this, you can just go over and collect a big bunch of resources. Now tip 3 is food and water. This is so easy to get behind on, but so easy to get on top of if you plan it out right. Now water is the easiest one to get on top of. As you can see here, if you could build a couple of water filter stations, maybe 1 if you've not got the resources, work up to 2, but build them right next to the water and then make a cup. And then all you want to do, fill the cup up with salt water, put it on the water station, a couple of planks to heat it up. Simple as that. You will never run out of water. And then for food again, first thing you want to do is build a couple of grills so that you can constantly have food cooking. Later in the game, you will get items that don't fit on those little grills. You will need to build bigger or medium-sized grills, but for now, these will keep you going for a long time in the early game. In the early game, there are 2 very simple ways to make food. One is farming. You want to build a small farm. As you can see here, I've got a big farm as well. Big farms take seeds that you find on islands, but first you'll be using the smaller farms here. You can have like potatoes and turnips in those. So what you've got to do is hopefully find a turnip or a potato. You'll find those in barrels mostly or on shipwrecks. Now, once you place 1 potato and then use a fresh water on top of it, that will take a little while, but it will generate 2 potatoes. As you keep putting the potatoes back in and keep watering them, you can have an unlimited amount of potatoes. They don't fill you up for long, but they are an unlimited supply of food, so you won't starve. The second one is slightly more tedious, but it will give you an infinite amount of food as well, and that is fishing. So once you make a fishing rod, you literally just fish off the side of your boat and you'll get a fish every single time. Some of these fish need to go on big grills, which you won't have in the early game, but some can be used on the small grills. Now these fish fill you up longer, but they do take longer. Now there's 2 types of fish, the herring and the pomfret. Now you need to be aware of these because they're used to make shark bait, which I'll cover later. So I would say if you catch those, don't use them yet. I would store them. You can see here I'm fishing for a long time trying to catch these 2 fish. So when you're fishing, store those, everything else, cook. Now food doesn't spoil, so I would take the time to stock up on quite a lot of food, and then you don't have to worry about it for a while. Like I said, once you've got a good farming system going, the food will just generate itself, and if you're not starving, you've got no issue putting it back into the farms to keep it going. Do a little fishing to top up when you need to, and you should never run out of food. Now, tip 4, guys, is the collection net. Now you can see it on screen here. This is quite difficult to build in the early game, but you should be working towards getting them as your first big projects. So standing with a hook collecting everything will take a long time, and it will make you hungry, thirsty, and anything that you're going past, you'll miss because you'll be too busy getting everything. So what you want to do is you want to automate the collection of floating debris by making these collection nets. Anything that floats past your boat that goes through these will be captured, and then later on you can just run past and pick it all up while you focus on, going on islands or building up your boat, researching, anything like that. Now as you can see on mine, I've laid them all out along the side. This is not the way to do it. I've now learned the best way to do it, and that is to put them in the middle of your boat, as they are at risk of getting eaten by the sharks on the corners, and you don't want to lose such an expensive piece of the ship. Ideally, you would put them in the middle of your boat and you would zigzag them so they can capture everything, but they don't take up too much space and they don't risk getting caught by the shark. But as you can see, they're so useful. I'm just here building an extra expansion to the raft, and as I just jumped down, I need more resources. So I look to the side and my collection nets are just full of resources that I can just run past and collect. Now the final tip is to scavenge the hell out of every island you see. There's so much stuff to collect on the islands that isn't really clear at first, but you need to be finding them and you need to be clearing them out of their items. Now as you're just drifting along the ocean, you will slowly see islands in the distance. You can either build a sail and get over there efficiently, or you can just drift close by and then use your paddle to get to shore. Both work depending on how built up your raft is. Now when you get there, the first thing you need is an anchor. This is what you need to stop your raft just floating away from you. You drop it on the side of your boat and then you throw it in the water, but once you leave the island, the anchor is destroyed. There are better anchors you can build in the future, but this one's like a one-time use, easy to make, but it's quite wasteful on resources. But it will keep your raft right next to the island where you leave it, and you can just farm away. Now when we talk about farming an island, there's two things to think about. There's on top of the island, and on there you generally have, if you have an axe, you can get a lot of wood, you can get a lot of fruits, you can get a lot of vegetables. You can also find seeds which you can use for painting. You can use seeds which you can use for making like pineapples, melons, things like that. And every now and again you'll also find chests on islands which can have scraps, nails, things like that, I believe. So there's quite a lot on top of the island you can find, but that's not where the real treasure is. Now when you're done clearing the top of an island, you want to make some shark bait. Now this takes, I think it's rope and a couple of fish. It'll be on screen. Yeah, there it is. So once you've made shark bait, you can basically throw this into the ocean and the shark will go and eat that for a certain amount of time. While the shark is eating that, you can go under the water next to an island and you can get on the reef. And the reef is where all the good items are. Now, this really is a treasure trove. You might not understand at first what all these items are used for, but you want to be collecting everything. You can collect scraps, which you can make into different items. You can collect clay, which you can make into bricks. You can collect stones and rocks, which are used in a lot of different recipes. And you can also find seaweed. Now, seaweed might not seem that important, but it is huge. Seaweed is used as a glue later in the game and is used in a lot of the advanced machinery and materials. So you collect all the seaweed, collect all the scrap, and collect all the clay. As you do this, you'll also notice little rocks on the side. Now these are metals, so you can find like copper, iron, collect those. They are super important later on for advanced machinery and other important blueprints. And this kind of covers all the beginner tips. Once you do all this, you'll have a pretty good understanding of the game. You should have a lot of good items stored away, and you can start really exploring the next things to do. I can make another video later down the line with more advanced tips on where to go next and how to start the story if people are interested in that, but hopefully this gives you enough to understand the game and understand how to get started. I stream a ton of games like this on Twitch most evenings, and I'd love it if you guys could drop by. It's always a good laugh over there. I'll drop my Twitch handle on the screen now. Thanks again for watching, and have a good day.